Hello everybody and welcome to the Top Producer Show. It is Monday and our mission is to educate, equip, and to train servant leaders. Our vision is to create financially independent achievers, and our purpose is to help people grow. And we are going over the book Think and Grow Rich, so you want to stay tuned for that. But first we're going to go ahead and invite some people onto here who have asked to be invited. Hope everybody had a great weekend. All right, and here we go.
Robert's here. What's up, sir? Let's see who else we got. Afternoon. Chelsea is here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So we are on chapter 6 of Think and Grow Rich. It's going to be a good one. Let's just do a recap real quick. So the first step towards riches is desire, actually knowing what you want. He goes on to say a white hot burning desire for an exact accumulation or an exact amount of money that you're looking for. 2 is faith. He says, you kind of have to have faith of a child to believe that it can happen through plans, through people that you know, and things like that. Next is autosuggestion. Autosuggestion, repeating over and over again to yourself that this has already happened. That this is, this will take place. This is going to take place. This has taken place, and that's how you're going to start accumulating riches. 4th is specialized knowledge. They said there's a bunch of different ways you can get specialized knowledge. One of which is going to school. Another which is self-accumulation through trial and error. Then he goes on to say you can also go to school or university, and then he talks about a mastermind. He goes, you can actually accumulate this information through the efforts of a mastermind of being around smarter people. So he really is saying who you hang out with has everything to do with you getting ahead. Which brings us to the 5th step. The 5th step towards riches is imagination, the workshop of the mind. This is the 5th step. It is said that man can create anything which he can imagine. And man's only limitation, within reason, lies in the development and use of his imagination. 2 forms of imagination, synthetic and creative. Synthetic imagination arranges the facts with no emotion. Certain people do have the ability to do this. They're going to look at like an overall situation, and because they'll organize their imagination and organize all the facts and all of the process and say, okay, what is the best way to walk through this? There's your C-type personalities. Their job is critical thinking. Their job, is the cognitive. They're able to do this a lot of times in their head, but you'll also find that they're really good at writing it all down once they have it, correct. The second type is creative. So synthetic imagination arranges the facts with no emotion. Creative imagination is inspirational creation. Creative inspiration works automatically. Your imagination becomes weak if not used. So stop daydreaming is actually not a good thing to tell your kids. But what, daydream about like getting, good grades and, doing what you're supposed to do. Do not hesitate in your study of these principles until you have read the book at least 3 times. So this is stuff that you need to repeat over and over and over and over and over again for it to be able to sink in. Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. Ideas are products of imagination. People buy titles, not the contents of the book. Why does he kind of say that? Because your imagination, when you read something, you think in pictures. And when you think in pictures, you actually are using your imagination. So therefore, the title of the book, F you money, for instance, everybody thinks about a different thing, but you're going to use your imagination to think about a different thing, and that visualization usually is that's how you can pinpoint and say, well, you actually know how to do this, and here's how to do this. Use the word Ferrari, everybody thinks of a car, but the symbol on a Ferrari, if that's what I meant, is actually a stallion, and some people don't even know that. So people buy book titles, not the books themselves or the contents of the book. There is no standard price on ideas. So this is something that Robert Kiyosaki goes into as well. He said, ideas create money. The ideas create money. And if you have the right idea at the right time and were able to describe that idea to the right people, you can generate an enormous amount of money. And, this is what Shark Tank's about, right? Shark Tank, somebody had an idea. They, went out and in various stages. Some people just had the idea. Some people have the idea and have created it and now are trying to figure out a way to market it. Some people have created it, figured out a way to market it. They're selling the program or the product. They just can't figure out a way to scale it or grow it, to be able to grow it bigger. They don't have the right management. They don't have the right distribution points, and or they need to change manufacturing, where it's at, how it's done, from doing it by hand to, mass production, to be able to make it really, really work. So ideas create money. One good idea. We were able to, I kept getting asked this question about how we were doing leads. How are you doing leads? How are you doing leads? How are you doing leads? So I put together a lead workshop and put it online, and we ran a class. That wasn't the goal wasn't to see how fast I could develop money, but it was really an idea, and I'm not telling you this to, say this is what you should do, but it was really an idea that I was like, I should put this online, I should be able to market this. And we went from thinking about it to generating over $1,100 in it was a very short amount of time, maybe 15 days. And $1,000 isn't a lot of money to most business owners, most people, but to be able to do it with just out of an idea, and throw it online digitally and be able to market it with the help of others. It was awesome, and I was like, well, if you could do 1,000, you could do 2,000. If you could do 2,000, you could do 4. If you could do 4, you could do 8. And we started talking about how to scale that up and up and up and up and up. Very cool stuff. So there's no standard price on ideas. The creator of ideas makes his own price, and if he gets smart, he gets it. So it's like, okay, so here's the idea, here's what we should charge, here's what we can make. But it just comes from the idea itself. You can generate an enormous amount of money with just one idea. But if you work on that idea, if you're able to do it once and you're able to scale it using your imagination of who you need to go talk to, the mastermind group, all these different principles. The story of practically every great fortune starts with the day when a creator of his ideas and seller of ideas got together and worked in harmony. So a lot of times you'll have the creative thinker that thinks up the idea, but it's very, very important to know other people, which is why networking is so important. There are tons of people who are crazy talented in art, whether it's singing or making something. Drake, what's happening? Pat Perry's here. Hello, hello. I see a bunch of people just jumped on real fast here. Robert, I saw Adrian, Thomas, what's happening? Pat Perry, hello. Happy New Year to everybody. But where was I going with that? So sort of practically every great fortune. So, you come up with the initial idea, but it's actually the idea person sometimes doesn't know the person who can then push it out the door, doesn't know the marketing person. And we've all seen those super talented people. Like, I've met people that I'm like, you're more talented than people we see on TV. The difference is you don't have the network. You don't actually have the connection to the people who can then get that out there on a massive scale. And, thanks for social media, good or bad. Social media has the ability to push some stuff out there. So what you can do is you can use social media to gain an audience. You can use social media to grab attention, and which is awesome. And then that opens up a network of people. Then you have to ask the most important question that John Maxwell said the most important question he's ever learned to ask. And most people, here's what's crazy. Any of us can use this question, and most of us don't. And I think that's the biggest problem. And that question is, if you're taking notes, this is probably this could make you more money than absolutely anything you'll probably see today online. Who do you know that I should know? Who do you know that I should know? Who do you know that you can introduce me to? That one question basically introduced John Maxwell to John Wooden. And John Maxwell was able to meet with John Wooden, actually have several sit-downs with him, and be able to gain all the knowledge of John Wooden's philosophy of winning. And John Maxwell said it was one of the most, it's one of the most important relationships he's ever been able to build, but he did it through a guy he was meeting with lunch, and he just said, who do you know that I should know? Who do you know that I should meet? And the guy's like, well, I know John Wooden. Would that help? And he's like, John Maxwell is a huge basketball fan, so he's like, yeah, that would help. So that's how he got that introduction, because he went to lunch with somebody and he was networking and he asked that question. We can all ask that question. None of us do. So sometimes the idea is there. You got to put it into use. And there can be other people who can give input in and start creating. Social media is kind of like that. The person who thought up the idea created the platform, but then we created all the content, which is kind of like Goodwill. Goodwill opened the store, and then we drop off all our crap, and then Goodwill makes money off of it. Interesting concept, right? They have the power to live on after the brain that carries them has returned to dust. So your ideas can keep going. So what can you think of? What can you create? What can you dream of that can live beyond you is the question. It's not just about money. It's not just about creating a fortune. But what can you create? Especially nowadays with all the digital technology is great, but what can you create as a hard copy that can live on without you? Like somebody said, what if you put down the notes of all the life lessons you had and then pass that down from each generation? Like, hey, what if you could read something from the age of 10 to 15 or 10 to 18? What if you could read something that, people who had an experience of, their entire life could sit down and hand you this book and give you these lessons, start saving at 18, start accumulating. It's not how much you make, it's what you keep. And showing a chart of, if you put this amount of money away at this compounding interest, here's what you'd have. Here's how to grow a business. Here's the lessons, it's more important who you know than what you know. Don't worry so much about, perfect grades as much as learning the information you need to pass through the grades and get to the next grade. But who do you know along the way? What relationships do you build? It's more important who you build a relationship with than what relationship you have right now, because you can always build new ones in the future. So that is the chapter for today. Tomorrow, we'll be going over the 6th step towards riches, and we're going to kind of run these down. So again, if you missed it, desire, white heart burning desire was the first one. Faith is the second. Auto-suggestion is the third. Specialized knowledge is the fourth. And then there's this one, the imagination, using your imagination to create ideas. And we're all just one good idea. They said, riches can come in abundance like that when the idea pops into your head. So the problem is most people aren't trying to use their mind to think about it. Are you a consumer or a creator? Consumers are people who do this and flip all day. They're just consuming information, taking it in, taking it in, taking it in, taking it in, but they're not creating anything. Guess who makes all the money? It's not the consumers. It's not the consumers. It's the creators. So what are you creating today? What positive message are you going out? Who are you attracting? What attention are you driving to yourself to be able to build a network where you can get, some positive feedback, get the right connections, network to build the right business. These are important things. So,
yeah. And the more you focus on developing your creative mind, the more ideas are going to come. But it takes putting yourself into a position where you actually have to think about these things. It's just like with different, when I decided I wanted to do a blog for holistic health business, I was like, man, I don't think I can even come up with 50 topics to talk about. I'm like, I could maybe come up with 10, but I don't know what else to talk about. But I'm like, okay, well, I need to come up with the 10 first, and then once I start writing them, the ideas will come. And as I started writing, the more ideas of different topics and things to discuss started to come along. But you have to put yourself into that situation and into that environment of having that creative mind to get yourself starting to create. And that's when ideas start to come. And the more you do it, the better the ideas get, until you get to that point where you have a different idea, and then it's like, that's it. That's going to be the moneymaker. That's the one that's going to take me to where I want to go. And it's just getting into that process and thinking and really getting your brain working, because like Jeff said, a lot of us are always scrolling through our phones. We're doing a lot more consuming than we are creating. So it's just creating that environment for yourself to get you into that mindset. So with that is what we have for you guys today. If you haven't yet, you want to go join the Top Producer Show, because we're going to be sharing, the Top Producer Show Facebook group, because we're going to be sharing our notes to there, and then anything else that we have that we think you guys can get from, like if Jeff mentions something on the show and it's something that you guys would like to read, you can find it there. We're also on YouTube, so each one of these videos is going to be uploaded to there. So if you'd like to go back and rewatch these, you're more than welcome to. So with that is what we have for you guys today, and we will see you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.